This conference will now be recorded.
So now we will discuss about the theoretically how the architecture was built and what are the components that are available and what are the building blocks that are exist in CPI Internet. Okay. So let's look at first the architecture. Let me share the screen. So now if you look at in the comparing with the on-premise and the cloud platform. On the cloud platform, each tenant will work in the clustered environment. Okay, that means the physical resources of hardware, so or the CPU and the data center, the how that is of those resources are sharing among all the tenants, but the data will be secured into the secured for the data specific to the tenant, but it will work in the multi-tenant platform. Okay, so the SAP cloud platform that they're offering as a service, it provides a development environment in the cloud that enables customer to develop, configure and deploy and manage applications. Okay. So the CPI is designed as a virtualized and clustered integration platform in the cloud. Okay. So virtualized means what? The fundamental entities of the integration platform are virtual machines, okay, rather than physical ones. And clustered means the platform is modularized and composed of smaller and more independent entities, which as a whole it will it will make it cluster. Okay, so that means if you know uh, it, it there are 10 customers are there, but 10 customers are working in the same cloud platform. The resources are sharing among all the resources. For example, yesterday you have seen the content modifier, the iFlow was developed, right? So the background, what are the resources are needed in order to execute your iFlow, that will share among all the clients. Okay. Mm. So that will work in the clustered environment. So though they are saying a cloud, but the resources are sharing in among all the customers. So that means, but if you look at in the on-premise systems, the physical resources are also dedicated to the customer. Why? Because the customer itself has built that system, and it runs for his, you know, for his business only, right? The enterprise, what he wanted to run, the resources are allocated, and the team is allocated in the same way. But here now it is changed, right? So, so when we send, sender, when we send the data from sender to the receiver system, okay, so it will goes as a middleware. We use the CPI tenant. So this middleware CPI will be work for all customers, right? In the same in the clustered integration platform. Okay, so the a platform the resources that assigned to the particular sender or receiver process that messages are received and forward them to the recipient system. Okay, so now if you look at here, this is the process that is follow when the new customers are subscribed to the CPI tenant. When I say subscribe means like for 2 years or 3 years you wanted to use the CPI tenant, right? So you will subscribe to the CPI tenant. So here customer, each customer will subscribe to one or more accounts. Okay. Here account means here there is an account, right? So account means is a basic entry point to the cloud platform. Okay. So it represents a hosted environment provided by SAP that will assign to the customer, and it defines a set of authorizations and the resources that are using from the platform that are allocated to the customer. So that is why they will create the account. Then each account will have one tenant. Each account has one tenant. So for example, if the customer is using three tenants, like development environment is one, test environment is another one, production environment is another one, then he has three accounts and three account has three tenants. The next, each tenant will have two nodes there, right? So each tenant you are seeing a tenant management node and the runtime node. So here, what is tenant? What is the meaning of tenant? So tenant is a logical entity which represents the physical resources of cloud platform that are allocated to a specific participant, and within the application the context that will work in the multi-tenant capability. So tenant is nothing but a shared resources but that will work dedicated to the customer. Okay, it is
Can we consider the tenant as a client in system,
yeah,
like the development? Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So we can consider as a client in like comparing to SAP, we have
Hmm.
different clients, right? So you can consider one of the client is nothing but a tenant.
Okay.
So this means all customers using the CPI shared same physical resources, and but their tenants cannot interfere with each other. Okay, so whatever it is like a SAP clients model only, absolutely. Because in the SAP clients, the physical resources are sharing among all the systems, but sorry, all the resources. But each client will not copy the another data. Okay, whatever the custom data or the specific client data that will not be sharing by the other one. So they are isolated from each other with regards to the memory, data storage, and CPU. So tenant isolation means the physical resources are allocated by tenant that cannot be accessed by the another tenant. Okay, that is the meaning. So tenant again, within the tenant there are two nodes are there: tenant management node and runtime node. Okay, so these two nodes are assigned to the take care of about the whatever the iflow that you are creating. Okay, that is called a cloud process. Okay, so these cloud processes will be work to the virtual machines. What is VM? VM is nothing but virtual machine. So here how it is linked to VM. So here we are creating the tenant, right? So So this tenant, in order to work tenant, right? These virtual machines will be operated. Okay, so the virtual machine is used to in the sense. No, we virtual machine is a what we call is a software implementation that executes a program in the same way as a physical computer. Okay. For example, why it comes the Java virtual machine? As I told you, the CPI is running on the foundation of Apache Camel framework, right? So this Apache Camel framework, what is the code is developed based on the Java code. The framework was developed. So in order to execute our SAP, iFlow, right? CPI iFlow. In order to execute, we need a runtime environment. So that runtime environment is a Java runtime environment. So when you use the Java runtime environment, that Java runtime environment uses these virtual machines. Okay, Java VM means Java virtual machine. So this Java virtual machine will use like a runtime environment in order to execute any of the iFlows that will execute by using these virtual machines. So So the actual processing of the message at runtime is accomplished on Java instance. Okay, so that refers to a Java virtual machines. It is like a instance, JVM instance. So in the CPI iFlow, as a graphical interface, you develop the iFlow, but physically the iFlow will be executed by using the Java virtual machine. Mhm. In the Java virtual machine is nothing but Java code that that runs on the Apache Camel framework. So now this is how the process will be followed. Okay. Now what is tenant management node? What is node? Which are there in the these two components are there in the tenant, right? So we will look into that about tenant management node and tenant runtime node. Okay, so this is the just a high level view of the architecture. If you look at the inside a tenant, there are two blocks you are seeing: tenant management node, runtime node. These two are belongs to the or CPI tenant. Okay, so when I say tenant means it is a logical entity that represents the customer data, right? So this tenant contains two nodes, TMN and RN. In the bracket it's showing virtual machines. Why it is? Because both are using the resources of the Java virtual machine. And what is TMN? TMN is nothing but it manages the runtime node of a cluster, and it acts an agent between the user who logged into the CPI and the runtime components of HCI. Okay, so the tenant management node manages the runtime nodes. In simply, I can say it manages the starts or the stops of the runtime node. So TMN is basically to manage the runtime node. Okay. So what is the other one? Runtime node. Runtime node means it just simply process the executes the task that is assigned by TMN. So that means the message that is processing the CPI, right? So the whatever the integral our iFlow that runs on this node, right? So this node type interacts with the systems, and it will execute accordingly. So the runtime node is basically to simply execute the task. But whereas the TMN, it manages the start or stop, and the load balancer is there, right? To interact with the load balancer, and it manages the request, whether we need to accept or we need to process it immediately or not. So it manages, okay, it's like a management node. And the next one is the runtime node. So these two nodes are available in the tenant. Okay. So you want like to see the two nodes? I will show you here.
Hello.
Yeah, just a minute. I'm just preparing this Eclipse. It looks like this Eclipse is corrupted. I'll show you tomorrow this. So there are two nodes will be there. These two nodes we can see in the Eclipse. Okay, just to try to see the what is TMN and what is runtime node. Okay. So these two nodes are operating for the different purpose. The management node will manages the request like administrative part, and the runtime node is executes the tasks. Okay. So now the question is how many TMNs are available in the tenant? Okay. How many runtime nodes are available in the tenant? So TMN should be always unique. So therefore it should be only one. Okay. If how it is complex, how big the tenant, but the TMN is only one. But whereas runtime nodes are available more than one tenant runtime nodes are available. It depends on the usage of the tenant. Okay. If the usage of the tenant is increasing and more runtime nodes are added. Okay. Then in the below, if you see via persistency service, there are other areas it is connecting the tenant. All right. So these are called a type of stored data. Okay. So the the persistency means it is a storage operations. Right? So what kind of a data that will be stored in the CPI? One is monitoring data, monitoring. While monitoring, there is some data will be created through logs, through trace, through debugging, right? So this type of data is stored. And the another is content, right? Message content. Message content means the physical and raw data. So both two types of data that will be stored in the CPI. So coming to the message content, so this message content it contains the business data. We can say payloads, right? So each payload of the message and the message header, okay, all type of, and properties, the all type of the data that will be stored. So the processing sequence such as data that will be stored from message to messages that will be stored as per the configuration that we have built in the iFlow. So the message content can be stored, in the system. It's not like one day or 2 day. It will be stored for some time. Okay, sometime means uh, you can say initially 4 months. After that, you can increase it to how much time we want. So, but now we reduce it to the 90 days of the even the payload also. So initially the payload is available for 90 days. What is the purpose? Why? Because the main purpose of such as future, if you want to do the error analysis or the audit logging and archiving, so that is with the storage duration by default they make it 90 days. Okay, so this data is written by the runtime node. Okay, to the
Hello,
database.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost my connection. If you don't mind, can you please repeat that? What you said that just 5 minutes back?
Yeah, 5 minutes back, nothing told. Just Eclipse I just tried. So now only started. Okay. So what I am explaining here is the in as per the diagram. If you see in the below, there is a persistency service. There are two type of data that is showing. Right. One is message content, and the another one is monitoring data. So message content means the business data, the payload. We can technically we call it as a payloads, right? So these payloads of the each message in the entire iFlow that is available. Okay. So the uh, these payloads are stored for 90 days by default, and this data is written by the runtime nodes. Okay, so that is why if you see the message content that is interacting with the runtime node as well. Okay, so next here is the monitoring data. What is monitoring data? The monitoring data is nothing but during the iFlow execution the logs will be created, right? So the monitoring data records the entire message during the message processing. Okay, so whatever the steps that are involving during the message processing, those message processing logs, right, and the runtime logs and the any other exchange properties of the logs, everything will be stored in the monitoring the data. Okay, so these two types of data that will be stored in the CPI as well. And the left side, if you see, there is administrator, integration developer. So these are the different roles that users that we are connecting, logging into the CPI, right? So that will be communicated to the first load balancer. So whoever the request comes from the internet, first it will check by the load balancer, and that load balancer is hosted in the cloud platform, not sitting inside of the tenant CPI, but it is hosted on the cloud platform, and the load balancer will interact with the TMS, tenant node. So any request, whether it has to be accepted the trusted network or not, that will be checked by the load balance. Okay, then it will assign the task. So the concept of load balancer that we understand, it is also applies the same concept. So now on the top, if you see the sender and the receiver. So the sender is generally will send the request, and the receiver will be accept the request. I mean, the CPI will send the data to the receiver, right? So if you see there, the load balancer that is available for sender only. It is not available for the receiver, right? So what was the reason? The reason is simply that the request that comes into the CPI that has to be checked by the some external party like a load balancer. Why? Because there are chances of coming from the non-trusted networks as well. So if they trusted or not by authentication process, it will check in the load balancer. But when it comes to the receiver, the request that will goes from the CPI. So no need to check by the request whether it is correct or not to the receiver, because it is a dedicated communication that will apply from CPI to the receiver. So therefore, the load balancer is required in order to check for incoming request, not for the outgoing request, right? So that is why there is a load balancer that is available between the sender and the CPI tenant. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have one question. The load balancer, who will be responsible for like uh, checking the authorizations or validating it? Would it be the client's responsibility or would it be SAP's?
Yeah, SAP responsibility, because they are offering this as a service, so they have to take care about the if any problem with the load balancer, or if it is not responding well in the load balancer, SAP will keep on monitoring about the dedicated resources. So the load balancer is part of the cloud platform. So therefore, they will keep on monitor the load balancer.
Okay. Should we provide them any certificates for authentication or?
Yeah, of course. Certifications are there, are the plain user ID password. So these are the comes with the authentication process. How you wanted to communicate, that will be there are different selection processes there. So based on the authentication process, it will understand whether it has to be accept or not.
Okay, thank you.
And is there any
So
limit? Uh, Sorry, is there any size limit, like it will accept only some sort of MB at a single go or something like that for the load balancer? Or is there
limit
any
means
restriction? Is there any
no
restriction, size restriction?
size in
Like,
terms of you're saying the data.
uh,
No, size is up to 1 GB, 1 GB at a time. Okay, that is the size that is available. So, if you take a 10,000 employees of data, that will goes like in 2 MB or 3 MB size, because it is not like at a time it will go. So it's like a buffering to accept it. So, the speed of the data processing is very faster. So there is no such restrictions for the
okay,
load balancer in the tenant. As long as you pick the data, it will work. If you wanted to increase, you can increase in the adapter settings.
okay,
And this
But
load balance is only
size,
for
actually, the size of the things that will not checked by the load balancer. No, the main purpose of the load balancer is whether I need to accept this request to come in or not. That is the only thing. What type of size and what type of data, the data evaluation will not be done by the load balancer. Load balancer job is, for example, you send the one request, okay, but that is not maintained right authentication. Authentication means I don't have a trusted networks for that request. Okay, so I will reject. I mean, as a load balancer, it will reject. So if that the request comes from the trusted network, then it will accept. So that is the job of the load balancer.
okay, got you. Then maybe a size part, like which area
Size
or where?
part will accept by the adapter. So the adapter that will look by the adapter.
One small query. So trusted network means an integration point of view. We already conduct trusted systems, right? So where actually we'll get untrusted networks.
Okay. Can you please put on mute? A lot of noise. Okay, thank you. So we are not connecting to the trusted system. If it is a trusted systems, then there is no question of things. But there is a chance of coming untrusted. The request comes from untrusted systems as well, because it is working in the cloud. Right? The cloud means through internet. Let's say, for example, I have given the URL system. Okay, suppose, just to try to understand, then I just entered this URL, and after that I given the wrong user ID and password. Is it a trusted? It is not trusted, right? So it's simply, those things will check by the load balance. I'm talking about as a human user point of view, like a integration developer. I you know I, I This is one way of checking.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
other one is, yeah, and the other one is on the sender, like ERP system, for example. So you are sending some cost center data, okay, but that system doesn't maintain the authentication. That means you don't not connected to the system. Okay, I mean the authentication process is not set up. There is a authentication process, so that is not set up, then it will reject. So such type of things will done by the load balance. And someone asked about size, so the size will be evaluated by the adapter. So in the adapter it will check, because that is the one that after trusted, after that you will connect the adapter, that will have, that you need to perform within the CPI. So there it will check about the data part, whether it is in the XML format or not, and what type of size can we process it in, not all these things will be managed by the adapter. Any other questions? So basically here you can understand this TMN and runtime node, how it is processing these data and the iflows.
So here, like, after sender sending the request, it is directly going to the runtime node. But when it comes to the administrator and integration developer, the requests are going to TMN. So is there any difference when the sender sending the request to goes to runtime node, not TMN?
Why? Because once you set up the authentication process, then the main task is to execute the task. No need to manage that runtime node, because that is already established. Okay, so the things which are not established, that has to be checked by the TMN. For example, as integration developer, I just given the for in the CPI, I just logged into the system by using URL link, user ID, and password. But what type of role that has been assigned to me, accordingly, the permissions has to be provided, right? But everyone will not be see the same resources and same access. So that will be evaluated by the TMN. And also the users needs to execute the task. He needs to assign the runtime node as well, right? So for that also will be handled by this TMN. But whereas the sender system that is connected to the runtime node, why? Because no need to manage for the TMN, because that is how you are configured by using the adapters. So in that case, the TMN management is not required. That is why it connected to the runtime node. Same way it applies to the bottom level also, the message content. So in order to store the data in the CPI, again it will not necessary to be handled by the management node. Okay,
Okay, and the load balancer is sole purpose is for authentication, is it?
exactly, authentication.
Okay, thanks, Kumar.
Yeah. How to do authentication, how certifications needs to handle, that we'll discuss in security part. Okay. So this is the basic understanding about the CPI tenant. Okay. So now Let's discuss the next one. So here, yeah. So if you look at here, the normally the I flow will be like this, right? The I flow will be like this. So sender and so these are the elements will be involved typically normally in the I flow. So sender and the receivers. If you want multiple receivers, you can use that. Between sender and the receiver and the CPI tenant will be used with the couple of steps that we are using it, right? So the integrate this we call it as a integration flow. In shortly we call it as I flow. Okay, so what does it mean by integration flow? The integration flow specifies how a message is to be processed to a tenant. Okay, so there are a couple of steps that will check in the forward direction. So the message will be processed from one step to the another step. Okay, so this type of see you're just graphically you're just representing the steps, right? You're just dragging, dropping the I flow, right? Yes, we have seen the content modifier. So we are using the three content modifiers, and you remembered last class we discussed the three content modifiers, just dragging from one step to another step, forwarding the connections, right? All these things are doing. But how come without doing any code, this is working? Because this is working by using a model called BPMN. Okay, so by using this BPMN model, that can be intuitively specified by a integration a developer as we are developing that iFlow that will be defining as a graphical model. Okay, so to make a iFlow available for the runtime node, it must be deployed in the corresponding tenant. Then it is executing the iFlow. Why? Because until we deploy the iFlow, the runtime node that will not accept what that will not be understand what type of the iFlow it is, right? So that is called that we discussed like a Apache Camel as an integration framework, right? So the Camel foundation will be specified these things. So the if you look at the runtime resources, for example, as I told you, the in order to what type of runtime environment we use, the Camel Foundation, the Java Virtual Machine, right? So Java Virtual Machine is nothing but a runtime environment where it really executes the code, right, in the runtime environment. But the iFlow, what you are developing, the task like a content modifier execution, I mean processing the message, content modifier you have taken, right? From one content modifier to another content modifier, the message is moving. Those things will be handled by the runtime node, which is available in the see the difference. So the runtime node will do the message processing, right? One step to the another step, whatever the message that is moving that is processing, that will be handled by the runtime node. But whereas the entire execution that has to be processed in order to move from one step to the another step, the message is moving, right? But actually the core that is moving, that is by using the Java virtual machines. Okay, of course we don't need to understand, but I am telling you to understand how the background it works. Okay, so the fundamentally the base is Camel framework. Okay. and the and based on the Camel framework, our CPI tenant is running. Okay, so the concept of the CPI that is hosted or built based on the Camel Foundation. Okay. Okay. So here, if you look at the left side, we are already seen the process from starting with the customer to the Java virtual machines, right? So right side, if you look at here, the camel root, camel context. So these components are belongs to the camel foundation. Okay. So this BPMN model is there, and so it will support whatever the iFlow that we are I mean the main purpose of BPMN. If you look at the right side, it's showing integration flow, BPMN design time, right? That means whatever the iFlow that you are developed in the graphical model, that will be understand by BPMN. Okay, so the that is one of the standard technology that is developed on Camel Foundation. So the iFlow that we are representing in terms of graphical model, that will be understood by the this PVMN model. So how a message should be processed on a tenant, right? So how we are doing the modeling in the what exactly we are doing kind of a modeling, right? We are not doing any code for that. We are just taking a content modifier and moving into, we are taking another one, we are just connecting, right? So that the message and the data is moving it. So this is like a modeling that we are doing. The same graphical model will understand by this BPM. So this is kind of the design standards that will understand by the BPMN, which works in the Camel Foundation. And by the way, all this data, it will be processed through the integration flow, right? So that it has to be processed in the XML format. Okay. So the model is that is transformed into an XML structure. Okay. So which is compatible with Apache Camel specifications. So this Camel, the XML structure is deployed on all runtime nodes which are assigned to this tenant. Okay. So how message that flows, okay, that are implemented by the Java, the Camel context that defines the components that for a specific integration flow. So depending on the complexity of the iFlow, each camel context, right? So these routes are specified. So what is the route here? Initially, just for camel route, right? Camel route is nothing but a message flow, okay, from one point to another point. It will specify. Okay, so it's nothing but a route. One step to another step we are moving it, right? So the camel route will support. So the 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 in the base, the camel foundation will understand and support the graphical representation that we are developed in the CPI tenant. Okay, so that is the context that we are integrating here. So you just understand, once you develop the iFlow in the CPI, in the background, how it is interlinked with the Camel foundation. Okay, how it is compatible with these resources. uh, so every iFlow, in order to execute, for example, if something goes wrong, the errors will show you like a started with the Java only. Anything error which relevant to like system side, it will show. If you're going to see you, so those errors all are representing with the Java. Why? Because that those are relevant to the camel errors. other than data Other than the data, if you see any errors which are belongs to the system, If it is a system errors, then those errors will show you like in the Java relevant errors. Okay. Why it is in Java relevant errors? Because those are the errors that is occurring in the Camel Foundation. So that is about the runtime resources and artifacts. Any doubt? Any Okay, so now then to understand, now let's look at the story. So the typical message will be like this.
Here, like in the previous diagram, you have shown there is one sender and multiple recipients, right? Like, but
Yeah.
in the real-time scenario wherein we might have multiple senders and one receiver also, so that can be
If you
handled
want
here.
multiple senders to handle with the to send, yeah,
Mm.
multiple senders and to send it to single receiver or
Yeah.
single sender and send multiple receivers. Yes, it will support.
Okay. Okay.
Now let's look at understand about this message structure. Okay, let me open the iFlow that you have developed last time. From this group, still anyone has not received the credentials of the tenant,
Yeah, I haven't received.
or you haven't received yet, and others have received it, right?
Send me an email
Okay.
with the material, but they haven't sent me the credentials.
Or you just ask this guy Madhu or Ganesh,
Yeah, sure.
Sarath,
Yeah.
just ask him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get it this access by today,
Okay.
so that you'll start understand. You start practicing the cycle.
And one more thing, Kumar. So for these credentials, I mean, real time. So any authorizations needs to be enabled for this by
Yes,
admin.
yes, yeah, there is a topic called user administration. So there are roles and authorizations are available. If it is integration developer, you will assign the respective permissions. If you wanted to like to monitor like a system maintenance, not sorry, system operation monitoring purpose, you will assign another. If the project manager wants to ask a different permission, you will ask. So there are different roles are available. Accordingly, you will assign it. So now if you look at the iFlow, so here you can see the steps, right? Start as a one step. Then it going to the content modifier one, another step. Then it is going to the content modifier. How the message is going this direction? Because based on these arrow marks, those arrow marks we call it as a connectors, right? For example, if there is no connector here, then this message will not move. Okay, in order to understand the moving the steps from one step to another step based on these connectors. Then connector modifier 3. then finally end message. Okay, so total here 5 steps are there. Okay, so these 5 steps is moving from one step to another, one step to another, like that, based on the connectors.
Hello. Hello. I
Yes.
need small clarification. What is the
Yeah.
start timer? Because I lost my connection, so that's why I can't understand. What is the start timer?
Start timer is nothing but in order to specify the a timer about what it's like a scheduler. What date
Okay.
or time you need to specify, you can use the timer.
Okay.
Is the first class for you?
No, no, no. Actually, uh, this is the second
Last time
class only.
we discussed the outbound flow, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
There only we use this timer. So timer is basically to use the scheduler. So timer based
Okay.
event, the particular time you wanted to start the flow, it will execute.
Okay.
Yeah. So now these steps, when it is moving from one direction based on the connectors, content modifier 2 to 3, then end message, the structure of the message will be unified. Yeah, Rajesh, please put on mute.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay. So when it moving in the message, it will move in this format. So any message, whatever the step you use, for time being here use the content modifier, but use the script, use the message mapping, or use any of the step that you are using, the message will be goes in this format. Okay. So the structure of the message will be like this. The structure of the message will follow this format. It is not mandatory to use things, but typically the message will be like this. What it contains: headers, attachments, and body. Okay, header means if you define the any properties like a parameters, so those parameters will be maintained as part of headers. If you have the attachments, it's like a optional. If any type of additional attachments is nothing but like to reference variables or reference parameters to call those things, and that is part of attachments that will be there. And the body is nothing but the raw data, the business data that is moving from the enterprise to enterprise, that we are processing the data, right? So the payload, the raw data that is available in the body section. So the typical message will be flow in this way. Okay. So now, so that so this is the type of message. So
Sorry, small question there. Like attachments, is it that like from the sender system, if we get as a file as an attachment, then is it that like we can send the same attachment, process the data here in the iFlow and send that attachment, send that as an attachment to the receiver? Is it that or it's a different concept?
no. The attachment means not that one. Attachment means here the properties, you can say. For example, technically in the content modifier, we are seeing header, exchange property, and body, right? So the attachments, for time being, you understand about property, whatever the here names you are maintaining, those comes under attachments. Okay.
The out of the box question, like can we send attachments through CPI or not possible?
What does it mean? Attachments means.
File, like can we get the data from the receiver sender system, process it and send it as a file. Maybe
Yeah,
the
that is
value.
data only, no?
Okay.
That is comes under data only.
Okay, as an attachment, like any CSV files or something like that, can we
Yeah.
send? Or
So whatever the CSV file or PDF or whatever it is, that comes under data. So that will be the data will be processed as a raw data that fall under body section in the message.
Okay.
So
Okay.
whether you are sending through the mail adapter or you are sending to through any other system, that will decide by the sender system or receiver system, but that will be processed the actual data. Okay, so
Hmm.
that is not a attachment. Attachment is nothing but a reference. For example, you are defined the a date. Okay, date format you are defining it. So for the date format, you are using some expressions like a dollar date now, so that the current date will be called. Okay, and or else you are referring to the some other in that body. So these kind of things are attachments which are processing by the CPI tenant. Okay, so that is not coming from the any other sender or receiver system. But
Okay.
whereas
Okay.
the header and the body, that will be that will be comes from the sender.
I got
So
you.
yeah. So the
So,
message.
sorry,
Okay.
Kumar.
You ask me
Uh,
everyone what are the questions are there, so that I will clarify even once.
Sorry. Uh, okay. When you mentioned about the attachments, so we can't even put an attachment in the mail that we send out at the end of the process. So it could be any business scenario where the user might want to send an email to the to a recipient along with an attachment, and if they ask us
Yeah,
to design it on the
it is.
flow.
Yeah, it is possible.
Okay.
So the output of the data you wanted to attach to the email, we can send it. We have already seen it last time we used the mail adapter right here.
Yeah.
So if you go to the mail adapter and just go to the connection tab, and there if you see there is a section called attachments. So if you just enable this, just give the attachment name, automatically whatever the data that comes, that will be attached to the mail.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
You will explore this option. Hmm, any other questions from anyone?
Hello. So this is Ravindra. Actually, this is my first class. Like, how many? So how many classes left before this class?
Oh, here is your first class. I think, of course, we are using architecture now itself. So you understand. And the two iFlows we just configured, inbound and outbound. We just refer these recording sessions so that everything will
Okay.
start from here. Any other questions? What any other architecture? What we are discussing now? So just ask me if you have any doubt. Just ask. Okay, then just look at this. So the format of the message will be like that. Okay, header, attachments, and body. Any type of the at any given step that will be follow this type of model. Okay, any message. So now when it is moving from the when the message is moving from one step to the another step, there are some exchange will happen, right? So from the message from content modifier 2 to content modifier 3, it is going. So some exchange happens here, and from the content modifier 2 to the end, it the message is moving. So some exchange happens from end to the mail. It is going through the mail adapter. So some exchange happens. So this is nothing but the exchange properties. Okay, that will be written in the log file as well. That exchange pattern will be like this. So each message, when it is moving from one step to the another step, and the message exchange happens, and it contains these details. Okay, so these parts of the message, it will make up an exchange, and it will move from one step to the another step. So when it is going from one message to the another message, these exchange information will be generated at each step. Okay, so start to the next, next. Each step, these exchange details are there, and you can see these details in the log file as well. And the first one is here is the exchange ID. Exchange ID is nothing but a unique ID that identifies this exchange. Okay. So when it's going exchange ID from one step to another step, this exchange ID is generated. Next is the MEP. MEP means message exchange pattern. What kind of the pattern they're following it? There are two type of patterns here. One is in only, and the second one is in out. That means is nothing but a asynchronous message handling and the synchronous message handling. So in only means the message will goes in only. Okay, so that means the root handles a one-way message. Okay, so that means the sender doesn't wait for a reply from the receiver. So hence the exchange will carry an in message only. So whenever any message will goes in a one direction, right? So that message is expected in the communication, just it doesn't expected the receiver, right? The no acknowledgement. So it is known as the asynchronous message handling. If you look at in the iFlow, in the first iFlow, I think in the SOAP adapter, we have used the SOAP adapter where we are showing the exchange options, right? One way and the two way. If you look at here, it's showing message exchange pattern, right? So this message exchange pattern, it will support one way or the requested one. One way means what happens? What I said now, that one, in only message. In only means the incoming message only will process, and the sender doesn't expect any acknowledgement that it has reached or not. It goes in a one way. Right? And the second thing is in out. That means request reply. So this root handles a request response message. So the sender will expect a reply from the root. Okay, so which will be stored as a out message in the exchange. So this type of handling we call it as a synchronous message handling. So MEP means there are two messages, in message and out message, right? So in message is nothing but asynchronous. And anyway, when you are moving the message, that the structure of the message, as we told, header, attachment, body, these three things are available, right? So that will be stored in this in message. And next is the, as told you, the out message. The message format won't change, as we discussed here. Any type of the step, right? Any type of the element that we are using in the iFlow, that will follow this type of format, right? So The in message and out message is also following the same way, but the response, the in message will accept only, it will goes in the one direction, and whereas the out message will send the response back to the sender. Next, exception. For example, in case of any error occurs, right? So the what is the root cause, what is the cause of the error, right? That will be created in the exception. So in case of any error during the message processing, the reason for the error is stored in the exception field, so that you can see in the exchange properties. Next, properties. So this is nothing but a temporary storage where process steps can store the data in addition to the header area. Okay, that is called properties. So something we are defining like a variable, right? So that variable information will be stored in the CPI tenant. That is nothing but one of the properties. So that is available here. So this is the typical exchange property that you can see it in the log file. Okay. So here exchange, message exchange, right? And the typical message will be like this. Then you can take a iFlow. So the iFlow will be, uh, the typical iFlow will be like this: sender and receiver, and in between you have a start and end message that is routing in the message processing, that is in the part of the secret tenant that will that you are developing the iFlow, right? And the typical architecture will be like that. And this is, there is a one slide here, network infrastructure, but we will discuss in security part, so that you will effectively understand that. And the runtime resources and artifacts, this is the interlinked between the process of CPI tenant, and which is connected in the foundation of Camel framework, right? This is like that, and each customer process will happen like that. So now we'll go back to the, so before going to the next iFlow, any questions on that? No questions, right? Okay. So now we discussed the content modifier, right? So now we will discuss about the request reply. Okay. There is another step that we will discuss about that. We'll go to integration flow. So this is the timer event that you start. Why I'm using a timer? Because whenever I wanted to start this interface, I can start this interface from at any point of time, right? So that is why we use it here. So in the scheduler, you have a number of options, like a run once on the daily schedule if you want to run on the particular
So,
given time zone. Yeah.
just like I have some network issue. Just repeat, just where it's integration step.
Okay. So here in the scheduler we have a run once, then the scheduler on the day. So whenever you wanted on the particular day, you can give that. And if you want it to happen recurringly, you can use the recurring time every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 1 hour, a daily basis. You can give that, and the time zone is also available. Okay. So this is about the the timer that will start, right? So we can use this timer event. Now the topic that we wanted to discuss is request reply, right? Content modifier we already discussed. So now we wanted to use the request reply. So let's discuss about this one.
Background noise coming, Kumar, from your end or something. I'm not sure.
Some noise is coming. Okay, 1 second. You can check. Maybe it's better. So now here there is a call that you can use a request reply. So this request reply we will use that. What is the purpose of using the request reply? Somebody say, oh, okay, let's put it. I'm just connecting the entire iFlow through connectors. Okay. So the start timer, there is arrow mark. Okay. For example, if I connect like this, right? So the sequence of steps will be processed in that way. Okay. So based on the connectors, the steps that will be for the message will be forwarded. Right. So request apply, then request apply to end, and end to mail. So when you use the mail, you can use any of the adapters. So let's say mail adapter. So here you are using requesters, and you can use success factors. So in the success factors, when you use the success factors adapter, you can see different message protocols are available. Okay, these are nothing but APIs. Okay, so as of now, you can see there are three type of APIs are available: OData, REST, and SOAP. Out of three, effectively using as of now OData API. Okay, the SOAP is very soon it is closing, and the REST is used for only the limitedly for the selective tables. Okay, so all the tables will be supported, and the best API to use for success factors is OData. In the OData, we have two options: OData V2 and V4. V4 is not fully released. V2 is the currently operational. So use OData V2. Okay. So this is the just using the icon. So now we are using the request reply. What is the purpose of what is request reply? What is the purpose of the request reply? So the request reply is in order to get the data from the other system, right? To in order to process that, so you will request something like I wanted to extract the data for these fields, so that the response will be get of the you will get it in terms of the what type of operation you are using. Based on that, the data will be comes into the CPI tenant. Okay, so that is nothing but a request reply. The word itself is indicating requesting of what you're looking for, and the response you can receive what you got the data that you are extracting from the system. Okay, request reply. So basically the request reply will be used whenever you wanted to get the additional data that that you need to process in the message processing. You can extract the data from the success factors here any other system. Okay, that will be supported. So since we are using success factor system, we have the adapter called success factors adapter that we are using that. So now if you see now we will see the configuration for the success factors adapter. Okay, how to configure the success factors adapter. So let's look into that. So success factors adapter is success factors adapter. A configuration. It has general is anyway it is a common to just to give the name and description. That's the processing and the connection details and the processing. These two tabs we need to configure it. And by the way, the configuration for adapters, any type of adapter configuration is dead easy in CPI. It's not at all complex and it is very easy to configure, and it takes just 2 minutes or 3 minutes to configure it. Just the configuration of the adapter, any type of adapter. Why? Because we are just giving the details only. Okay. So here I'm giving the success factors system connection detail. So therefore, we will connect to the SF system. Okay. So that we can give the details. Then processing. Okay. Now you connected to the SF system. Now you connected to the SF system. So there are the operations are available, like a query. Query means you can just extract the data from SF system. Okay. Read is also the same purpose. Create means you will insert the record into the SF system. You wanted to post the data in the SF system, you can use this operation. And update means the record is exist in the system, they are going to modify the record. Use this record update. And delete means just to remove the record from the SF system. So upset means if the record is exist, it is going to modify. If the record is not exist, then it is going to insert. So offset is nothing but insert plus update. Right? So both operations will do. So all these operations will be supported by this adapter. Okay. So now what kind of a object or a table you are looking for? Let's say I wanted to extract for one employee. So I can use personal information. I want to extract personal information. So the entity is nothing but a table name. So once you select, you can see the list of fields that are available here. So this list of fields you can select. I want this, I want that, and then formal name, last name. So you can select what are the fields that you are wanted to query. So I selected. Okay. Then step 3 is showing the filter conditions. Filter condition is nothing but a where condition. So what type of how many people you want to extract, or based on what area you want to extract. All conditions will be there, right? So here I am selecting for one employee equal to I'm just giving one employee. Okay, so that one employee data will be extracted. If you want to extract it based on the gender, based on the last name, middle name, so many things, so many conditions are available, and going forward you will see more and more filter conditions. So now this is like a shorting in the table, how you want to, once the message process, this will be in the sequence. Okay, so these are the by using these three simple steps, you can configure the SuccessFactors adapter. Now click on finish. Okay, so now if you see in the message, what you're seeing here, EDMX file is created and per person entity get 0.xsd is created. Okay, two files are created, EDMX and .xsd. Just remember this. I will tell you in the session, the next session, what about this. I will show you those two files, then you will understand what it contains. Okay, then request reply is finished, right? So now it is going to be sender end message. Now you will configure the mail adapter. So in the mail adapter you can give the connection details. So I'm giving the mail connection details. So subject line you can use like personal details of the employee 127. That's it, right? So now, for example, these personal details you wanted to see as an attachment, right? So you can use attachments here. So just click on add. Okay, just give the attachment name, that personal info dot, what do you call this, is txt, let's say txt or psv, anything, psv, and then name type. So these are the types that are available. So I can use text plain, and you can say body. Okay, so add message attachment. So that means whatever the body that is written, that will be stored in the attachment. Okay. Please find attachment. Okay. So in the context modifier, we don't need to define anything, not required, just say hello. now it is saved, right? So next step is to deploy. So just click on deploy. In order to execute the type flow and see the output, we need to deploy this option. Just click on deploy. Okay, so this is successfully completed. So now we will look into the output, how it is sent that, right? So now just open the mail.
Here in the CPI, we cannot see the output, is it?
In the CPI, you can see the details. I mean the output, if you want to see, we can see that, but for that we need to do additional things. So at the moment, you can see in the mail.
While giving that, read and query, both are same operations, is it?
Yeah, read and query are the same operation. So now if you see, the message is completed, right? So if you want in the future wanted to see the output in CPI, by default it is not available, and by default the configuration is also not available. And if you want to make a output in CPI, you need to do additional configuration for that. Okay, that you are going to see in the coming classes to understand how to enable the payloads and see the output. Okay, as of now we will see in the email the actual output how it is coming. Okay, so now go to the email. Now if you open this, so we got the email. This is the email that we get it from that CPI tenant. So the subject line we have given this one, and please find the attachment that we have written, and now the attachment is available. Okay, so if you open the attachment, so the data of the personal details that we have extracted for each employee 12766, right? So for that employee, the personal details of first name and last name, nationality, these are the fields is coming up. So this message, this data is in XML format. Okay. So as I told you in the CPI, it processing the camel XML, right? So the XML format data that will be processed.
Hey Kumar, one question. I'm looking at this attachment. You specified a name in the email settings down there in CPI, and I mean I'm just trying to understand how is the connection between the attachment and the content in it. Where is that assigned? Or just by mentioning the name, would it take the contents and put it in the attachment by itself, or what?
You mean to say that how the data is coming to the attachment?
Yes.
So there is an option, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you check in the mail adapter, so if
Yeah.
you look at this mail adapter in the below, so whatever the here is showing a mail body, right? So the
Yes.
mail body means the output of the message, the in message that will comes to the body. Okay. So here I selected, when I selected the attachment name, I am not even selected the attachment name. I have selected the type of the attachment. Is it a .txt or .csv or .html, what .css, any type of format I selected. So here I selected as text plain, and I selected as a source as a body, right? The body
Okay.
means whatever the content of the body that will be written in the log. If I say header, then this body will not come. See, when I say
O-
header, if you define any data in the header, that will come into the data.
Okay. One thing is in the content modifier in the body, you mentioned hello as a content in it. Uh, did we get that in the mail anywhere, or did we even specify it to read?
Yeah. So that is the what my question is now. So my next question is, in the content modifier, we updated the here body say hello, some text, right? So that nowhere
Yeah.
you can see in the email, right?
Yeah.
So my question here is, what is the reason that you guess that is not coming into the mail? Any idea by anyone? Why this
It's kind of
body?
overwritten.
Yeah, it is written, overwritten by which one? Is overwritten by?
The reply from SuccessFactors.
Yeah, that's correct. So that means here, what happening here is whatever the previous message. Okay, just catch my point here. So whatever the previous message, like content modifier one, sending a message to the request reply, right? So whatever the message that is arrived at a request reply, that will be overwrite by the response message of request reply. Okay. So the hello word that has reached to request reply, it doesn't mean that it is not reached, it is reached to request reply. But the response of the message that will be overwrite by uh, the the body. Okay, so that will override by the previous message. So whatever the previous message will be there, not only body, if you have the XML format also, the XML message that will be also override. So the functionality of request reply is like that. So the functionality of the request reply is to overwrite by response message. So when it is override by the response message, then what message will go? The response message only will go, right? So when it goes to the response message, that is the reason you are not seeing the hello word, because it has overwritten by the response message. Okay. So now the next question is, then how to overcome this? Because significantly we need to carry the both the messages, the previous and the response, right? How to overcome this? So that we will discuss in the tomorrow's class.
But in this
Okay.
case, content modifier is required, Kumar.
Now, in this process, really it is not required. For the just sake of explaining this word, I just included.
Okay. And while configuring that connection request replay from success factors, so we
Mhm.
use one structure, right? So, can you please go to that?
Structure means you mean these query options?
Yeah, resource path. So per
Yes,
personnel. So how
correct.
come we need to know that this per personnel? What
Yeah,
about the structure?
you are an integration developer, you don't know that, but functional people will guide you what is the resource path that you need to select in the process. So it is a personal or EMP job. There are so many tables are there. They will specify what type of the object you need to select in order to extract the data.
And
Okay.
only OData, right? For success factors integration.
Yes, as of now it is our data, and but SF API is for the other purpose. Like if you want a full load of the data, there is a one API called SF API that we use it. But individual tables, if you want to extract the data, OData API is the only source.
Okay, so it's only for individual data, like in this case, per person structure and all, it's OData. Otherwise,
Correct.
we need to change the resource path to API, is it?
Yeah. So compound employee.
Okay, resource path, compound employee. So that
Resource path is compound employee, but that will use SOAP API. So when to
okay,
use? Okay. Anyway, we will explain what is there in SOAP API, what is not there in OData API. We will discuss in detail also. But briefly, I am telling you the individual tables. If you want, we can use OData API. You want everything in one shot, then use SOAP API.
okay. So API, and here the resource path would be compound employee.
Correct.
Okay, okay. And for Delta is also the same thing, right, Kumar?
Yeah, compound employee will support a full load, delta, snapshot, everything.
And one more thing you said is like right now this OData V2 is fully functional, the other one is not functional.
Correct.
How will come to know the OData V4 is not completely functional?
Functional or not by watching SAP updates only. So as of now, SAP communication, then V4 version is not yet fully released. So if you wanted to know what is going on and all, you just type sap.com, then go to OData API. You know, there they will update these news and other communications.
Hmm. Fine, Kumar.
Yeah. Any other questions from anyone?
And one final question, Kumar, from my end. So, like, for the full load, it's only to use a compound employee. It's not like, all the different structures we have to fetch from it, right?
Meaning the
In the sense,
structure.
like, when we are trying to, pull all those full load or delta loads, we have to use a resource path as a compound employee, not like individual structures, is it?
Individual entities, you mean?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, yeah. So if you want, of course, Delta will support for anything, either a single or full load. Okay, but if you want to extract for the complete employee details, having personal information, employment, in success factors, different portlets are there, right? So if you want to extract everything, then you use SOAP API. Okay, so for the individual tables like person information or job information like that, you don't have an option to extract from SOAP API. Only option is OData.
Okay, for individual portlets.
Exactly. Individual
Okay.
portlets, you can use OData API, whereas SOAP API used for the complete employee details.
But when you listen component employee, can we restrict based on the country?
That is depends. Then again, that is your job as a developer. So once you get the message, you can restrict based on country, based on company code, based on business unit, based on division. That is depends on our processing. So that is part of developer step.
Okay,
Hmm.
thanks.
Okay. So then we'll see you tomorrow same time. Okay. Okay. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.
Uh, tomorrow same time?
Yeah, same time.
Okay.